Hello class, my name is Chey Midkiff and I am here to discuss my favorite anthropologist. When given this assignment, I really thought about it, and there are so many anthropologists that I admire for a variety of different reasons, but overall I would have to pick Franz Boas. Not because necessarily he's the founding father of anthropology, which he is, and he is responsible for developing the four disciplines that we now study: cultural, biological, linguistics, as well as archaeology. But because he was an innovator for his time, Franz Boas was tenured at the Columbia University and taught many students his theory of how to study culture, one of them being Margaret Mead, another Ruth Bennett, in a time when women weren't really looked at seriously in the scientific world. He also was tirelessly trying to dispel the notion of race. In his later years, he spent up until his dying day trying to redefine race. He was hired by the United States Immigration in 1908 to go to Ellis Island and study the immigrants that were coming by the boatloads, by the thousands. And they wanted Franz Boas to determine who was racially inferior and who was superior. Well, Franz Boas, this kind of backfired for them, because Franz Boas determined that there was no way to determine racial inferiority or superiority in regards to race, because basically biologically there is no such thing as race. And at the time, science was on the very looming on the horizon was eugenics, the notion that, if you cull the herd, so to speak, if you take the inferior people out of the human equation, then you will end up with a perfect race of people. Sound familiar? It was a very dangerous notion, and Franz Boas worked very tirelessly to dispel this. His theory was this. He said that there was no such thing as race, and it was not a determinant for intellect, and that it was rather a conjured notion by white Europeans to justify the unequal treatment of other human beings, such as slavery and just racism in general. It was his desire to dispel the notion of eugenics, to dispel the notion of craniometric measurements saying, oh, somebody has a larger skull than someone else, therefore they are more intellectual, etc. He was an innovator in his time, which didn't make him very popular among white socialists, because he was rocking the boat, so to speak. So that's why I have to go with Franz Boas. Franz Boas worked tirelessly advocating for blacks, so he was one of the first people to be a racial advocate, advocating that black people were not inferior, which was the common notion at the time when racism was rampant against blacks, Irish, anyone that wasn't considered white Europeans. So that's why I choose Franz Boas. And thank you for listening to my little rant. Bye.